Thank you, Attorney General. These are questions that were taken by our members over the internet, and we took the most repeated questions or topics, and these are the questions we have for you. Attorney General McCollum, do you have any plans to scale down the size of the government if elected Florida governor? Do you have plans to maybe cut some old and unnecessary projects?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, we will have a shortfall of the budget, if you want to call it that, of about, well, it'll be more than $6 billion. It may not mean much to you in figures, but to give you an idea, Florida's budget's about $65, $70 billion. Last year, the year before, there was a shortfall in revenue of about $3 billion. There will probably, that'd be a little, around 10%. There will also be a real shortfall we can't yet calculate from what's going on with this oil catastrophe, because the revenues will be down. So it may be more like $8 billion, I can't tell you. But it's going to give us an opportunity because it's real. I'm not raising taxes. We just don't do that, okay? Not on my watch. So we're going to have an opportunity, and I'm going to take it with our advisory team to look at where we can consolidate agencies. We have to set priorities. It's something the federal government hasn't done, but Florida can do. We can't do everything, but we have to provide the things we have to do. When I said Medicaid consumes 27% of the state budget, you add up all the other things that, if it is expanded, how much greater that would be. What will happen to education, to foster care, to prisoners, to be able to take care of prisoners and keep them in prison and so on. So the first priority is public safety, education, things that are important. And I will guarantee you there will be agencies and commissions that will be either eliminated or merged or whatever. We will be lean and mean. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Jindal of Louisiana seems to have been stonewalled at every turn by the federal government from doing anything proactive to contain the oil spill. If you were in Governor Jindal's place, what would you do, if anything, differently?
Well, Governor Jindal is trying to do, I don't want to say I do anything different than Governor Jindal. He is a friend. I think he's been a tremendous advocate for his state, and he's been the one that's been the hardest hit. But I will tell you from a Florida perspective, just like I mentioned at the beginning of this evening, the federal government has not provided the resources we really need. What we need to have, and every county feels this way, I know you all haven't had that opportunity, but I have. I've been out to the counties. Each county in the Panhandle, each county period has an emergency center. You have one right here in Pinellas. I've been in by the way, they have a regional center for the Coast Guard here in St. Petersburg, not very far away. And I've been to that command center. It's like Mobile, except it's for this part of Florida. But I will tell you that each of the counties has one. And they're so frustrated because they're not given the authority to do what they do in a hurricane. If this were a hurricane, we'd have a lot of this taken care of on our own. And so laying booms aren't very efficient or effective in the water out off the coast, but they're very important when you get into a bay or an estuary or wherever the oil might come in. And so first and foremost, I would take charge as governor of this state right now of making sure that every one of the bays and the estuaries that we have, where we have an entrance into that area, is boomed, that we have whatever protection we can do. And then I would make sure that we had every skimming vessel. I don't think there's one in our water, but if there were one here, if that Jacksonville company had one, if I could find one, I would certainly be on top of it. And I'll tell you what I'm doing right now as Attorney General is going to happen, I think not next week, week after next. Jim, you might want to come to that if you want to. We're going to have a summit on technology. Now, why am I holding that summit? Why isn't somebody else holding that summit, you might ask? And I've asked myself that too. Because, yeah, well, I'm Attorney General. Well, we're going to have that summit. And why are we going to have that summit? Because there are a lot of technologies out there. We need to talk about it. About a month ago, Admiral Allen, and I'm not critical of Admiral Allen as an individual. He's a good man, I'm sure. But he created a working group to study new technologies. I don't know what they're studying. We've got a great university system, and they're studying. They're going to analyze this thing, and I guess in the future we'll all have a better idea of how to protect ourselves than we have today. But I want to do something now. And there's a polypropylene, I didn't say that right, polypropylene sheet, for example, that's made in Atlanta by a company that I'm very familiar with, that they say is technology that if you took that it attracts oil just like a magnet attracts metal. And we should be putting that to work, at least trying it out, at least putting a pilot out there. Why are we 60-something days into this and not doing that? And I think the state of Florida could be doing that. Local governments would love to be doing that. And then we bill BP for it. Let BP pay for it. They're supposed to be paying for all this stuff. That's a legitimate cost, and that's what I would be doing for Florida. I can't speak for Governor Jim Dillon. Thank you.
Sir, would you support the continued funding for the high-speed rail along the I-4 corridor?
The state of Florida, for the foreseeable future, has no money to operate. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't favor the idea long-term. I think intermodal traffic in Florida is a good idea. The federal government's obviously going to put money into this program, and we're all going to see where they go and how far they run that line. But we all know they haven't begun to fund it to completion. But I'll tell you what we do need to be doing. Not that kind of intermodal transportation. Passenger transportation is one thing. The other thing that's really crucial is carrying cargo by rail. We have ports in our state. There are a good number of them. One of them is in Tampa. One of them is in Bradenton on this coast. And they're over on the East Coast too. These ports are not equipped right now, are not connected right now to compete with Savannah or New Orleans when Panama's canal finishes the widening and these great big new cargo ships go through there. As a state, for our economy, we need to be able to do that. They've deepened a little bit the port in Miami, but it doesn't have the connector. It needs to be connected to the rail. The rail needs to be connected to Jacksonville or wherever else. We would then have businesses around wherever these railheads were, and that's important to our economy. That's the kind of infrastructure investment that is important right now. The moving of people in the way this proposal does not have the kind of priority that when we're having a $6 or $8 billion shortfall in the state budget, we can even consider. Okay? Thank you.